Hey everyone, Brandon Lee here with VirtualizationHowto, and today I want to walk you through something a little bit different. Instead of focusing on a single technology or project, I want to show you the collection of tools that quietly run my home lab every single day so far in 2026. And I've had some changes over the past year going into 2026. So it's going to be an exciting journey. I'm going to take you guys through that as a tour, so to speak, of those apps and services. So let's dive in and get started. Now, the first and most important component in my lab in 2026 is Proxmox VE Server. This is the first year in my home lab where I have moved away from running VMware vSphere for my production services, and Proxmox VE has really exploded in popularity recently, and it seems like the entire community is rallying around it. Not only that, but we are starting to see some real momentum in enterprise environments using Proxmox as well. Because of that, I decided this year to go all in on Proxmox VE Server. Now, in my lab, Proxmox VE runs everything. All of my virtual machines run on it, my containers run on it, including both LXC containers as well as my Docker hosts, which are virtual machines, and also my test workloads now that I spin up are on Proxmox. Now, alongside Proxmox itself, I have added a couple of management tools recently that I've been playing around with and using on a daily basis that have made working with the environment even better. Of course, all of us know for the most part about the Proxmox Data Center Manager, and that is a really great tool that's official from Proxmox. Lots of great features are on the roadmap. But there are two other tools that I've been using. One is PegaProx and the other is ProxCenter. Both tools aim to improve the overall management experience for Proxmox environments. And if you've used the default Proxmox interface for a while, you know that while it's very functional, it does feel somewhat dated compared to more modern platforms. And I think a lot of these projects are targeting a lot of those vSphere admins coming from that very polished interface of the vSphere client connected to vCenter server. Now, another major piece of my environment this year is Ceph and CephFS for distributed storage. I had the itch to get back into distributed storage this year, and I'd kind of gotten away from that. And that was something that moving back to Proxmox with Ceph storage capabilities built in that I really wanted to take advantage of. So Proxmox has that native integration with Ceph, and that makes it very appealing to use in Proxmox if you're looking to set up a proper cluster for that shared storage. So for me in my home lab in 2026, Ceph provides distributed storage across nodes in the cluster, automatic data replication, self-healing when a disk or a node fails, and flexibility between block storage and file storage, which is really cool. When it comes to backups and recovery, Proxmox Backup Server is a key tool that I have, of course, went to now that I'm full on with the Proxmox ecosystem. The Proxmox Backup Server solution sits quietly. It runs on my B-Link ME Pro, and that little unit is running great with Proxmox Backup Server. And I still also run Veeam in my environment as well because it remains incredibly solid as we expect Veeam to be. Proxmox Backup Server runs on its own schedule, generates restore points similar to what you would see in commercial enterprise products like Veeam. It also includes an agent-based solution that many people do not realize exists. That agent can actually be used to back up files within a virtual machine, so not just the virtual machine itself. So do check that out. Now, monitoring is another area where several tools work together in my home lab. I've got a blog post on how I actually do monitoring with Proxmox, and I don't use just a single tool. I find that a combination of tools really helps me to have that well-rounded view and monitoring data of the Proxmox environment. Three of the most important ones that I use are Netdata, Pulse, and ProxMenuX. Each one of those, I think, provides visibility in different parts of the environment. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. Netdata is my more general monitoring platform. It has a home lab license that costs about $90 per year, which I think is a great value for what you get. You get unlimited nodes that you can monitor with that license. And that particular license allows me to monitor everything from containers to Docker hosts to Kubernetes clusters. And I like the fact in this sense that it is cloud connected. So the management plane is in the cloud. And then of course I have the agents locally. And that gives me visibility if even something in the environment goes completely dark, Netdata is going to start alerting me to that. Now, ProxMenuX is another really fantastic tool that I rely on quite a bit. Many people know it as the post-installation customization tool for Proxmox, which I definitely use it for that purpose as well. But as of the 1.0 release, it also includes an excellent monitoring capability that the developer has included in the platform. And one of the things I really like is the hardware monitoring. I think it provides one of the best hardware monitoring platforms of the solutions out there. I can see NVMe temperatures, system level thermal metrics, all of those health metrics for those individual hardware components. Pulse is what I consider one of the best Proxmox specific monitoring tools for home labs. It provides a great overview of the Proxmox environment itself, but not only that, it also includes visibility into Docker environments, and it also gives you monitoring on your Proxmox backup server as well as Ceph storage. So if I am thinking about one tool that I can use to see the overall health of all the platforms that run most people's home labs these days, Pulse is absolutely that tool. Now, another major change in my lab over the past several years now, and each year has been getting stronger and stronger with this, is embracing Git and infrastructure as code. I really believe that any home labber who is serious about learning modern cloud native skills start with learning Git and infrastructure as code concepts. The easiest way I think to do that is to start simple. First of all, stand up a simple self-hosted Git repository and then start storing things like Docker Compose files and documentation in a Git repository. And that's going to do several things, but it's going to get you familiar with those Git commands, how to work from the command line with a Git repo, and it's just going to get you familiar with those concepts. Now, once you start using Git, the next logical step is to use CI/CD pipelines to automate tasks. As in my environment, when things started to mature and I got more familiar with Git repos, I stopped manually doing things like building virtual machine templates or running one-off scripts or deploying systems by hand. When you get familiar with CI/CD, you can actually schedule those types of things to run at a certain point in the week. If you want your Ubuntu server image refreshed once a week, you can do that. Pipelines can build container images as well as part of weekly refresh processes. So if you've got the need to do that, you can rebuild your container images, Packer templates, deploying virtual machines through Terraform, running scheduled tasks that used to exist across scattered cron jobs or Windows Server scheduled tasks or one-off scripts. The GitLab CI/CD in my home lab has helped me to keep the entire environment consistent, reproducible, and much easier to manage. Now, another key component that runs quietly in the background is my reverse proxy and DNS infrastructure. Recently, I moved everything from Nginx Proxy Manager over to Traefik. Now, I still think Nginx Proxy Manager is a fantastic reverse proxy, and it's frankly the one that I recommend everyone start with in the home lab. If you're just getting into Docker, spin up an Nginx Proxy Manager and use that for your reverse proxy needs. But as you begin moving deeper into infrastructure as code, Traefik becomes very appealing because it integrates so well with automated configuration. All of your configuration is in your configuration files for Traefik. So it makes a lot of sense from that aspect. Now, this past year as well, and moving into 2026, I've made some changes to my DNS and my DNS hosted services. I have long run a Windows Server DNS server in the lab, which also functions as my domain controller. And this provides Windows domain functionality as well as name resolution for Active Directory. And I've used that as my de facto default Windows DNS server and providing that name resolution in the home lab. Previously, though, on the other side of my network, I'll call it, I ran a pair of Pi-hole servers that were synchronized using Gravity Sync and then eventually Nebula Sync when Pi-hole 6 came out and Gravity Sync was no longer supported or maintained. But recently I transitioned to Technitium DNS because they introduced native clustering capabilities. Now, Technitium is one of those tools that has not received as much attention, I think, as many of the others, like Pi-hole has been so glamorized in YouTube videos and blog posts, and it's a great tool, don't get me wrong. But in many ways, I think Technitium is a superior DNS platform, especially with the new clustering features. This is just native clustering, so you don't have to rely on an outside third-party task or service that's written to make those two synchronize. It's just built into Technitium. DNS in my lab provides internal name resolution, service discovery, split horizon resolution for internal versus external services. It's extremely important. Another feature I recently introduced in a lab is Intel vPro for out-of-band management. Now, when I previously ran enterprise servers, I'd always had technologies like iDRAC, ILO, or IPMI available depending on which server vendor I was working with. And one of the things that I have really missed when I started using mini PCs was the out-of-band management capabilities. But after revisiting Intel vPro recently, when I decided to build a Proxmox 5-node cluster with Ceph, I was pleasantly surprised at how capable vPro actually is. And I found some great resources that step me through how to actually set that up correctly. And I think part of my frustration before was just some things that I didn't understand about vPro and the tools available. Now, once I learned and walked through those challenges that I had a few years back, I was able to integrate successfully with Intel vPro, and now I have remote power control once again, console access even when the operating system is down, BIOS level troubleshooting capabilities, and the ability to recover systems from misconfigurations. I think running a home lab without out-of-band management can be incredibly frustrating if you have a node crash or a node that becomes unreachable, or you are remote and you make a boneheaded mistake and you lock yourself out from a network perspective. You may not need it often, but when you do need it, it's an absolute lifesaver. So revisiting vPro in the home lab for me has been fantastic to reclaim that out-of-band management that I've been missing for quite some time now. So those are some of the key tools that quietly keep my home lab running every day in 2026. They handle everything from compute and storage to monitoring, automation, and networking. Together, for me, they create a stable foundation that allows the rest of my lab to run smoothly, and I'm always exploring new tools that can make life easier or that give me capabilities that I don't currently have. I'd love to hear what tools you're running in the home lab now that we've entered into 2026. Are there any that I should check out that I may have missed so far? Well, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And check out the full blog posts that link to many of the solutions that I've talked about in the video today for even more details on those tools and how they fit into my overall home lab environment. Well, thanks for watching. Do stay safe out there, keep on home labbing, and I will see you in the next video.